Each season is our scope, Terinéssha. 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 So, that's the poem in Oy'Nissh. Now, the context. So, often we fruit and vegetables meet. You see, I'm a big fan of fruit and vegetables. Growing up in Jamaica, it's innate that Jamaicans eat a lot of fruit, but maybe not vegetables. It's iffy, depending on the type of vegetable. But fruit and vegetable play a big part in my life. And coming to Britain, it still does. But we're talking about fruit and vegetable meeting up. We're talking about a scenario where someone go foraging and you might have nettles. I call it stinging nettle because I get scratched by it sometimes. You got nettle on the ground and you've got blackberry or raspberry or cherry on the tree. That's them meeting during a foraging outing. Another way of them meeting up is in the supermarket or in the marketplace or in grocery. This is where they meet, fruit and vegetable meet. So if you're looking at it literally, we're talking about fruit and vegetables meeting up in the wilds where we go foraging, but also it's meeting up in the supermarket, mainly in Britain in the supermarkets. But you have many grocers and there are places in the UK where you have supermarkets. No, that's literal if you're looking at it literally. No, if you're looking at it in concept, figuratively, we're talking about people, yes. And not just any people, we're talking about people who reside in Britain. So it could be citizens, residents, you know, who arrive working, etc., or students. But you reside in Britain for a while. So students, they're probably studying, and you've got the average person working, and then etc. So it's about people meeting up. How is that? How is that? Because we're talking about fruit and veg. When fruit and veg meet in the wilds, it's during the season. When they meet in the supermarket, although no, you've got a lot of imports, but the idea is about seasonality. So we're talking about seasonal products. For example, strawberry, British strawberry, during summer, yes? So it's about seasonal British products meeting up in the supermarket or in the market or in the grocery store or out there in the wilds during its season. So is it in Britain. People meet up during season because you've got football season. So often people meet up during football season, the Premier League, etc. Once the Premier League is finished, they don't meet up until the next season starts. Here in Scotland, we've got the Premier, the Scottish League, Premiership League, and in England, you've got obviously the English one. So you have the seasons. Then you've got the seasons where the parliamentarians meet up for various parliamentarian stuff. Then you've got seasons for Wimbledon. When have you seen Wimbledon played during winter? No. Wimbledon is a summer event. Then you've got Glastonbury, it's another event. So the idea of fruit and vegetable meeting up, it's about people of different type meeting up. So literally, fruit and veg meet up in the supermarket and out there in the wild. It refers to people meeting up in the UK during time when you have events. And when in the poem they talk about offering the bitter and the sweet, it's talking about the bitter and sweet experiences. You've got fruit and vegetables that offer a sweet experience. Parsnip offer a sweet experience during winter. Not so much sure on the Brussels sprouts. People have problem with Brussels sprouts, you know. So it just depends on what flavor the fruit offers during its season. It can be bitter and sweet. So is it in each season when the football players, they train. That's a bitter experience. But then the victory over their opponent is a sweet experience. But also, we're talking about events too. What about Wimbledon during summer? Many people attend the events of all sorts in the UK, in London. And the experience is a bittersweet experience because you want this person to win in the main event and that person women event. But in the main event, your favorite person isn't winning. It's just a bitter experience, but then it's still sweet because at least in the women category, your person is winning. So it's a mixture of bitter and sweet experience. It's the same with students. The bitter experience is to spend all this season studying and preparing, and then the exam during June, because you have the hires, I think, in May, June, and then A-levels nearing them. So the bitter experience is all that preparation and the exam, and then the sweet experience when the result come out and you say, oh, I've got my straight A's and I'm going off to medical school, I'm going to study business or agriculture or nursing or whatever. Or you're going off to college to be a chef or so forth. You've got the seasons where it's hard. During the season, the preparation period is hard, but then the sweetness comes when you graduate, you've achieved what you've set out to achieve. So that's the bitter and sweet experience for students. Or for politicians, the bitter experience is the debate. And I'm sure we are accustomed to Brexit. The season for getting Brexit done. The bitter experience and the battle, but the sweet experience was when it was finished. So there are seasons when people need to do things. But that's it. Once Wimbledon is finished, you have to wait till the next year. So it's the same thing with fruit and veg. It offers that sweet and bitter experience when you eat it or prepare it. But the thing is, it comes in its season. It's all about the season. Place us under the knife. We are talking about food preparation here. Because I'm looking at it from the point of view that I'm preparing Oy'Nissh food. And remember, I'm coming from a Jamaican Jamaican context where jerk is about preparing the marinade or the sauce to marinate the product that you're going to cook. But before you can get the veg in that state of to use as marinade or sauce, you have to chop and cut. So place us under the knife, meaning the preparation process, preparing the fruit and veg. And it's the same thing during season in terms of the competitors, those who are competing. So you've got the spectators watching, then you've got the competitors, those, for example, in the Premiership who are actually playing. Place them under the knife. That's the period of practice, that harsh training. And then during the football, the actual game, the richness of it all, that's then being placed under the pressure. The cutting and the scraping and all that. That's the pressure, And so we can oinify for life. So here we're talking about the idea that you've got the fruit and vegetable that have now been turned into marinade or sauce, and you've got, say, a fruit or vegetable on health promotion. And if I'm talking from an Oy'Nissh point of view, because oinify is talking about the ability to bring food into season, and this is where Oy'Nissh food separate from jerk food and probably most food that have gone on before, because this condiment is by season. So you've got winter Oy'Nissh condiments, spring Oy'Nissh condiments, summer and autumn. And depending on the fruit and vegetable in the UK that's available during that season, and those are used for health promotion in the sauce and marinade. So once you chop it up, scrape it with the peel and all that, get everything, you peel it with the peel and get everything ready. Then you're about to marinate the product, be it the vegetable, the bread, the dough, the chicken, fish, or the meat, whatever. That's the oinifying process. Now that seasonal fruit and veggies on promotion, whatever it goes on, it brings it into season, and that's Oy'Nissh. Oy'Nissh condiment is different from probably most or all condiments in that once it touches that product, it have the ability to bring that product into season. So when you're talking about Oy'Nissh for life, we're talking about seasonal products that is built on health promotion of the fruit or vegetable in season in that locality. So in my case, it's in Britain. When it's in season in Britain, it's used to make marinade only in that season. Except if it's in abundance and it can be frozen, you can freeze some. Obviously you have to freeze some, why not? Can't let it go to waste. But that's the point of Oy'Nissh, to bring season things into season, because the seasonal product is in the condiment or in the oil or the salt. Whatever you touch, it brings it into season. And so is it that the British residents do the very same thing, that whatever preparation that they've made, they help to flavor the experience of others. So the footballers or the tennis players make the experience of the spectators great. They Oy'Nissh the experience. They bring it into the summer season. Remember at Wimbledon you're having a strawberry eating, but then the focus is on the players. All the practice throughout the year, but now they are playing. They are Oy'Nisshing the crowd. They are bringing that summer experience of tennis, and only during summer, not winter, not autumn, nor spring, but summer. They are bringing that summer experience into people's life, and so are the students, the teachers who help to prepare and teach the students and get them ready by the end of the school year or past the exam and the result comes out. Then they celebrate with the teachers after all that hard work. And so also the parliamentarians preparing everything for the country, debating and planning and then presenting it. But each is in its season. You see, that's the focus. Now, the next part is each season is our scope. And this is critical, because what it's saying now is, if we're talking about fruit and vegetable consumption locally, we're talking about seasonal, fresh seasonal fruit and veg. They only have a particular season. And obviously there are times when people can pick them like apples and keep them and you can sell them a little later. But the point is, you get it in its season. It's not imported, not grown in special labs out of its season. It's collected during its season, consumed during its season, and stored so it can be used at some other point. That's the idea. Each season is our scope, meaning that they've got a limited time. Just like Wimbledon only have summer, just like the Premier League have, I don't remember the time, maybe September to probably June or so. And so does the school year in Scotland last maybe from August to May, June, etc. There's a season for everything, it's set. Then you have Terinéssha, a call to hope. You see, Terinéssha is about calling to hope. Why call to hope? Because of the pandemic. You see, all this time, everything is in its season. Every year Wimbledon, every year Premiership, everything is going clockwork. And then the pandemic. And everything is thrown off. Remember, we're talking about fruit and veg and representing people, meeting in season, doing things. The pandemic had ruined all that for everybody. School out of place, parliamentarians meeting out of place, health workers overwork and can't coordinate, events closed down, and all of a sudden in the UK everybody panicking, not knowing what to do, stressing out. Then the word Terinéssha comes to play, because now people will need hope to move on. You see, all this time the point lead to the point where everything was going okay, then the pandemic, no, there's a call to hope, because it's the only way that we're going to go into the new norm. And you listen to stories of many people cracking up, many people losing hope. That's what the real challenge is in Britain at the time. Many people losing their business, being stressed out at work, overwork, are not working at all because there aren't any jobs, there are lockdown, marital problem, kids stressing out. People need hope. And the word Terinéssha was born because it means it's calling people to hope. Now, the next part of the poem that I have to talk about, come seek after us on the plain. Now, you see, going foraging is different from organized agriculture. You see, when you go foraging, things are done haphazardly. You probably go here and there and pick a bit of berry on this side and go over the next part of the bush and get something else. But when we're talking about plain, we're talking about organized agriculture. A lot of effort have been put into play here. The land have been cleared, it have been prepared, and it have been planted, watered, and everything. So when we talk about come and seek us on the seek us first on the plain, we're talking about organized agriculture, because we're still on fruit and veg, yes? If we're looking at it literally, we're talking about preparation of fruit and veg. And we've got a plain, and we're talking about organized agriculture. Big plain, well prepared for planting your vegetable or your fruit or your orchard, whatever. In context and figuratively, we're talking about going back to the drawing board. You see, the plain represents organization and structure. Effort have been put in. The pandemic have ruined events. It have ruined the order and structure of everything. So it means one thing, because everybody have been affected. There's only one person or one group of persons people seem to be looking towards. Who? The government. So when it said come and seek after us on the plain, it's talking about the government sent to the people of the UK. Or the First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, or the counterparts in Wales and Ireland. The government is going back to the drawing board. Because this is new norm for them. So they have to go back to the drawing board. See the plain, they have to go and prepare the field again and start all over. They've got a year of experience, but now they have to start all over again on the plain. Back to the drawing board, restructure everything, because everything is out of place. And that's what they've been doing. And then the next verse talk about, isn't snow sometimes rain? Because apparently, during winter, we don't have much growing. Anything, maybe you've got potatoes in the ground and stuff, but pretty much everything else is gone, you know. Luckily, if you store some stuff, you're fine. Maybe that's why they pick the apples and leave them so that out of season they have them. Or when people forage for stuff, they can freeze things and use it out of season. But isn't snow sometimes rain? It's talking about the idea that we are now experiencing winter. So the government is gone back to the drawing board. It's preparing a new norm for the country. And it's hard because they are learning as they go along. But they're saying to the people who are losing hope, isn't snow sometimes rain? Meaning that this winter we're going through, isn't it going to turn into water? Meaning that, isn't there light at the end of the tunnel? Spring is coming. That's what it's saying, spring. And in the context of fruit and vegetable, when we talk about spring, we're talking about the buds start to come up. And once you start to see the buds, you know that soon the fruit will be ready. That vegetable will be ready. And also, especially in February, going March, wild garlic in the woodlands are one good indicator of that. You see the snow, and once the snow starts to melt off because of the rain, you start to see the wild garlic popping up. I've seen it in the Musborough area and so forth. So the idea is the government is saying to the people, it's rough and it's a new norm and we have to go back to the plain, the drawing board. But this winter, isn't it going to pass? Just be around with us. I'm saying to you, spring is coming. We're going to grow again. We're going to come back out. And it's saying to the people, just be patient with us. Just hold on a bit. We're going to get there. So isn't snow sometimes rain? It's saying about the fruit, that fruit and veg will be coming. They're not here now. And it seems as if we won't be fed. All is gone in terms of that. But it's saying that spring is coming. Give the government a chance. And it's saying that the people need to work with the government on this. Be patient with us, people. We're trying ourselves to get it right. It's not easy. We have to be dealing about 10 different things at the same time. But we're going to get there. Just bear on. We've gone back to the drawing board, but work with us as we plan. Work with Nicola Sturgeon, work with Boris Johnson, work with the First Minister in Northern Ireland and Wales and so forth. And so each government now can get things back together. But even if it's not the government only, but leaders of institutions, the educational institutions, the schools, parents and kids working with the teachers, in the NHS, working with the doctors and nurses and so forth. And in the agricultural sector, we're working with people who prepare food and different aspects. People who lead in areas have to go back to the drawing board, but bear with them as they try to get it right. It won't be easy, people, so you have to work with them. The other part is we're destined to keep you alive. You see? Fruit and vegetable. Apparently, the health benefits of fruit and vegetable. You see, the fruit and vegetable is saying to you, we've got the vitamins and minerals and stuff. It's our duty to keep you alive. Yes, we're destined to keep you alive. To feed you when the season comes, when we are plentiful and rich and in abundance in the supermarkets or out there in the fields, foraging and so forth. We will keep you alive. You consume as much of us. But the catch is, because it's the pandemic, everything is out of play. You see, it's not the regular season that we're having. So if we're looking at it also from a human point of view, we're saying that how the government used to deliver stuff, how the NHS used to deliver stuff, how parents used to deliver things in the house, because of the pandemic, everything is new. But the plan still is to keep people alive, to keep the family alive by practicing social distancing, keeping everybody safe, keeping the community safe by practicing social distancing. The government plan is to keep the country safe by putting the right things in place. And each special institution or departments or so forth is set up that way to keep people alive. That's the focus now. But during that time, a little bit of hardship have come into play, you see. Because people start to lose their job, people start to go hungry. And if we literally talk about fruit and veg, sometimes people can find a lot of that. You see, fruit and veg is to keep people alive, but during the pandemic, a lot of people are struggling. Remember, there are students who are not British, so they are international students, and they have to queue for food. We've had this scenario, and it's limited, and then you have British people, residents who are struggling too financially because of the work situation and no money coming in and paying bills and all that, and they are suffering in terms of food and so forth. So how are fruit and veg going to keep people alive if they can't get access to it? The next line explains it. Since 1 + 4 is 5. This is where the charitable organizations come into play. You see, since 1 + 4 is 5, the idea is that we should be having at least 5 portions of fruit or vegetable a day. That's the recommendation in the world and in Britain. So before the pandemic, that would have been the norm. Not that everybody do have the 5 portions a day. But with all that's happening and food limited in some places, and it's a bit complicated for some people who are struggling, sometimes they only have 1 portion. And this is where the charitable organization comes. +4. It might be an extra 2 portions of veg or 3 or 5. So what it's saying is +4 is mean an extra bag of fruit and veg to top up with what you've got. Or if it's the other way around, you've got 4 and you still need 1 to make up that 5, the charitable organization helps. And I say that in this part of the poem, in terms of what the charitable organization have been doing. I remember one in Edinburgh called Cooking Fresh. They are on Facebook, Cooking Fresh, led by Janine and Duncan Johnston, who are based here in East Lothian, but they cooking Fresh is based at the Edinburgh Seventh Adventist Church, and they distribute food. You see, they collect food from the supermarket like many charitable organizations. Much respect to you all. You've really helped people to top up their fruit and vegetable consumption by giving that added help where limitations were. That 1 plus 4, that plus 4 are the charitable organizations giving that extra help. And even if it's not only fruit and veg, but that extra package of food. And thus, we ask that God bless all these charitable organizations. Cooking Fresh in Edinburgh St. Adventist Church, the Samaritans, all these people who are working. And thanks to the supermarkets and all others who have been contributing. And churches and just other organizations. Then we have to go back to each season's horoscope, Terinéssha call to hope. You see, by the time we reach here now, we're talking about at this stage, after the pandemic have struck and everything have been almost put out of joint, we're talking about a slow recovery. Each season's horoscope. So like fruit and veg having to come back each season, and it seemed to be a slow process. So is it going back from the pandemic. It's going to be a slow process as we work with charitable organizations, as we work with our government, as we work with institutions, as families work together. It's going to be a slow process. We are in it for the long haul, people. It's at this part of the poem we're saying that just get ready to bear on, you know. We have to bear on. It's not going to be quick. But it said again, Terinéssha, or call to hope, that as we bear on with hope. Help is coming. Don't give up. Now, in the third stanza of the poem, find us over the hill. Because this is pretty much talking about foraging. You know, sometimes you go foraging, it depends on where you are, you have to climb over a hill to find the berries, blackberries, nice sweet blackberries sometimes. Always have to go over hills. I don't know why. It's seldom that you always find them on the plain. Well, organized agriculture, yes, but sometimes when you go foraging, you have to climb over a hill to find stuff. So the idea is that the fruit and veg is saying, if you want to come and find me, the wild garlic or the nettle or the elder plant or the bramble during its season, you have to make some effort. So over the hill is talking about come to find us through means of exercise. You see, the lockdown have presented us with a challenge of a sedentary lifestyle, and we have to motivate people to get back into an exercise mode as soon as we get the chance to walk around, which we do know as I'm making this video. The idea is about exercise. So find us over the hill. The fact that it mentioned over the hill, it means exercise. It's saying that to British residents, after all that have happening, and we've all put on a bit of weight. You can see some of the people who are presenting on TV, you know, they all put on weight. Somehow we all put on weight. But we need to exercise now. We can't lose our perspective in terms of healthy living, in terms of exercise. This is essential. So the over the hill is emphasizing exercise. Just like when you go foraging and you have to make the effort and climb over the hill to get the goodies. So is it. As we move forward into this new norm, we need to exercise. We need to get out there, go for a walk, go for a run, cycling. And the gym, once they are available, but we need to do some form of exercise. In the gardening, you see people doing things, but we all need to exercise because the lockdown have stabilized us in such a way that some of us lost that rhythm of exercise. So we need to get back into that rhythm. So over the hill represent that. Montigonian Jamesy, searching still. And this is where it's talking about myself. Because I love foraging. I'm from Montego Bay, Jamaica. And Montigonians are people who were born in Montego Bay. So, but a Montigonian Jamesy is a millennial Jamaican English term. a millennial Jamaican English term. I came up with that term. It refers to a person who was born and spent a substantial time of his formative years growing up in Montego Bay, in the parish of St. James, Jamaica. That's a Montegonian Jamesy. And I spent most of my time, early formative years, growing up in Montego Bay. So I'm a true Jamesy. And Jameses include people from Catadupa. So a Montegonian Jamesy is searching, and it's talking about this person who is from Montego Bay, St. James, and is in UK, and is also caught up in the pandemic with everybody else. He's still foraging, he's still out there foraging, which I remember I need to go forage for some, it's now April, so I need to go forage for some wild garlic, which is abundance, in abundance. So the searching is about foraging. Yes, I can search going to the supermarket for seasonal products, and that will happen during the year as everything starts to come into play, the strawberries and stuff, things that you won't get foraging. But the searching is about searching for fruit and veg. In context though, apart from just fruit and veg, it's talking about my personal experience. You know what it is to have a catering business being affected? Here I am vlogging, that's me being flexible. And you can't spend a lot of time cooking stuff because the finance isn't there, because you can't waste a lot of money just cooking and not selling. So no cook, it have to be planned. So sometimes you have to make videos and explain a journey in terms of foraging and so forth. So me searching, yes, foraging, but in context, I'm talking about searching for another way out. And this is Jamaican Oy'Nissh language, which you've heard earlier on in part of the video. Wherein, though I've been affected by foraging, by catering and promoting fruit and vegetable, I still search for a way to present hope to the world through the language of the food. And this is where Oy'Nissh food is essential, and for future investors and for future people who want license to use Oy'Nissh language in your graphics, in your art design or whatever, for poems or whatever, for business purposes and so forth. This is where it's unique because of me searching for a way to survive in January. The language have come into play now. That's the idea. That's Terinéssha in its right. It's saying that you have to go the extra mile, you have to keep searching for a way to survive. I can't just give up. And that's me searching for a way. And what happens when I keep searching? The result will come. Then the next part of the story, the poem is, be prepared to go beyond the beyond. And that is interesting when you talk about foraging, because sometimes when you're foraging for food, you can't find it in your area, so you have to go beyond the beyond for fruit and veg. Sometimes for shopping too, for fruit and veg, because you cannot get what you need in your local area, because some of it are imported and you need British fresh produce instead of imported stuff that have been grown in the lab somewhere else, you know. So be prepared to go beyond the beyond. This is the core of the message of Terinéssha. It's saying that with what have happened during the pandemic and how it have affected us all, some of us will now have to do the impossible. And in January I witnessed that. After 3 weeks, because of the lockdown and just staying at home again, no trade and everything is just crumbling and the bills are piling up. And I was about to give up. And God said, use what you've got. Use the brain. Use the technology that you've got. Just come up with stuff. And all the words that you've been using and hinting at last year and sharing bits of, turn it into an official language. Why not? You've got the time now. Write. Use this time to design the characters. And remember, I'm Jamaican. Jamaicans are used to characters. Except we go to China or Japan or some of these countries or Iran or stuff where they have these characters or letters that you have to draw. We are not used to this. We are British in our nature. terms of writing. So the idea of writing character is another level. And this is where Terinéssha comes in handy, because Terinéssha means that you have to go beyond the beyond. You have to know, do the impossible. And that's talking from a Jamaican point of view. You see, in Jamaica, the word talawa, there's a word called talawa, and it means that people not to be trifled with. They're not any pushover. They'll rise to the occasion when it comes to. And that's the thing with Jamaicans. Things are hard, but they find a way to put their hands and turn fashion and get on with life. They never give up. They're determined to succeed. But Terinéssha is another level above that. And this especially is to the Jamaican people who are listening. Terinéssha is a little above being Talawa. Why? You have to do the impossible. What that means is come up with a new language. And this is it, because now I've introduced to you a new language that Jamaica didn't have. A new food that Jamaica doesn't have, and it's still Jamaican and on the international market. That's Terinéssha. Do what not even thinkable in Jamaica, because we're still yet to put patois in a constructed form to teach, and it hasn't happened yet. And yet I have to invent or create an entirely new language. That is Terinéssha. To go beyond the beyond that not even Jamaica can go that far. And that's what people have to do to survive after the pandemic, going into the future. We have to be innovative. We have to now think outside the box and come up with things that's not inexistent yet. That is Terinéssha. Call to hope. To go beyond the beyond that. Not even the Prime Minister think that. And that's where I am today. Because in the next verse, thank God I am rewarded this second, because this video is evidence that it works. In January I could have quit, I could have given up hope in terms of the business and call it a day. But instead of doing that, I take God's bidding and say, use what you've got. And know the language is official and still virgin. But you know what it is? Like to our food. And out of the food that you've created, evolve the language. Where in the history of the human race, except during the antediluvian world, that you've got a food that the language evolved from. It's always the other way around, where you have the language and the food pop up out of it. But in Oy'Nissh, you have the food, and the food give rise to the language. And now the language complement the food, and the food the language. And that's Oy'Nissh, and that's my name. That is Terinéssha. And thank God I'm rewarded this second, because this second I'm sharing it with you. So it is real. That is Terinéssha. Not giving up. Going beyond the beyond. So in it, the latter part, now each season's horoscope, Terinéssha, a call to hope. This is a personal testimony. This is where I, as a resident in the UK, is saying, people, don't give up hope. You have to do like me and invent or create something that doesn't exist yet. You have to go beyond your culture, beyond your religion, beyond the norm, and think completely outside the box. If you're going to solve, especially if you're self-employed, you have to do the impossible. Although it's not necessarily impossible, you have to do what people don't think you would have. And maybe this is the case because many Jamaicans will be listening now. And here's a chef, Jamaican chef in the UK with a new food that's not even in Jamaica yet. A new Jamaican food that's not in Jamaica yet. A new language that's not in Jamaica yet. And it's still Jamaican in a foreign country. That is Terinéssha. And that's what people have to do to survive. You have to start from scratch. But the good thing is, if you're willing and you're determined, you can. And if you think it's beyond you to do it, you can ask God. So I'm saying to you out there for this video, I know it sounds crazy to you academics and Jamaicans or whoever is listening, but the reality is, out of nothing, just over the years, these bits and bobs that you think would have been just things to play around with, eventually now becomes the means to an end to survive. Now there's a new language, Jamaican language. Still, it's a business language and it's owned and managed by Oy'Nissh Ltd. It's managed by Oy'Nissh Ltd. So people who need to benefit from it still have to get license from me to use it commercially. The designs and everything, all rights reserved, yes. But of course we can do business because the idea is to promote business in Britain, give jobs and so that's one of my hope. But the idea is, I'm not standing before you as a Jamaican to my Jamaican friends and everybody. It sounds crazy, but now there's a new language. And the first ever, maybe since the descendants of slaves, that there's a language that's not European, a language that's not African. This is 100% Jamaican. And the funny thing is, it's created outside Jamaica and it's not a national language. No. It's Oy'Nissh and it's for the development of the food and the promotion of seasonality. And I'm hoping by God's grace that some of you are listening up there, because at the moment with the food, I was able to create the first vegan product called QSS, with its trademark as the first official vegan food for this brand. We've got Oy'Nissh chicken, which is its own trademark, and all the other stuff that I can't go into because they're trade secrets. But for universities, for business places, and for the tourist industry, I'm sitting on a wealth of not recipes but culinary systems with classification that are over 5 years of development. That's it have been in depth that I'm able to create a language out of all the words for the classification system. I am Oy'Nissh, the creator of the food and the language called Oy'Nissh, or Jamaican Oy'Nissh, or Jamaican Oy'Nissh language. And I'm hoping that you can lend your university to me, or your company, or not lend, but do some form of trade. Then introduce to you the new world of Jamaican cuisine and language. And hopefully I can create jobs for people in Britain, but also for Jamaica. So I'm reaching out to you because at this moment I've exhausted all the possibilities, all the funds in creating online dictionary and a seasonal calendar that's used in Scotland at the moment, online. And all these things have trained me financially, and I'm at a standstill at the moment. But I'm hoping at least if I can come to Jamaica from time to time and do some trade with the tourist sector and introduce this new system. And the good thing, especially from a Jamaican point of view, it's a new brand with the trade secrets still secure. It's all trademarked, everything. And in terms of the language, it's also trademarked but copyrighted. So you're dealing with the primary source globally, and no license have been granted yet. So if you have people selling online anything called Oy'Nissh, just remember, I haven't granted any license yet. But that's what I'm hoping, that I can work with some of you people. And I know it's so crazy that it's possible, but that's what I had to do. I had to come up with a language from a new food. And I'm hoping now I can use this as a means to do business. Maybe the tourist sector in Jamaica, the education department in Jamaica, with this new language, maybe it won't be a national language per se, but for the first time in the history of Jamaica, or from the descendants of slaves ever, there'll be a language that's not European, nor a language that's African. It's 100% Caribbean, and it's got characters. When have you seen that in the history of the black race, in the history of the descendants of slaves? And no, because of the determination to just go, there's a language that is written in alphabetical form and in character form. This is the new norm. So Jamaica, there's hope. And to all the British people, there's hope. So I'm hoping I'll be able to do some business with some of you out there to unleash that potential of hope. Terinéssha, a call to hope. Thanks for listening, and be of good courage wherever you are. If you're a Christian, God bless you. If you're a Muslim, Allah bless you. If you're atheist, walk good. And for all the Jamaican folks, wherever you are, be of good courage. Thank you.